Welcome to our legal analysis series. In today's episode, we will discuss the case of Macalintal v. Presidential Electoral Tribunal, PET. This landmark case, decided by the Supreme Court of the Philippines on November 23, 2010, tackled the jurisdiction of the PET in resolving election protests. Let's dive right into it. Facts. In the 2004 Philippine presidential elections, there were controversies surrounding the election of President Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo. The Presidential Electoral Tribunal, or PET, received various petitions questioning the validity of the election. Attorney Romulo B. Macalintal, who filed a petition challenging the jurisdiction of the PET. He argued that the PET's authority was limited to resolving the contest between the vice president and the second-place candidate for that position. At the heart of the matter was the interpretation of the Constitution. Attorney Macalintal contended that the election for president and vice president was a joint and inseparable election. Therefore, he argued that the PET's jurisdiction should be limited to the vice presidential election only. He further asserted that the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal, or RIT, should have jurisdiction over the election of the president. Issue: whether or not the Presidential Electoral Tribunal upheld its jurisdiction over the election of the president. Ruling: the Supreme Court, in its decision, carefully examined the constitutional provisions and the Presidential Electoral Tribunal rules. It ruled in favor of the Presidential Electoral Tribunal and upheld its jurisdiction over both the election of the president and vice president. The court's decision rested on the interpretation of the phrase election contests in Article 7, Section 4 of the Constitution, which grants the PET jurisdiction over such contests. It concluded that election contests encompassed protests not only against the vice presidential election but also those against the presidential election. The court emphasized that the joint election of the president and vice president necessitated a unified and efficient mechanism to resolve any election disputes involving these high offices. This rationale was further reinforced by the explicit grant of jurisdiction over both positions to the PET under its rules. As for Attorney Macalintal's argument that the House of Representatives Electoral Tribunal should handle the election of the president, the Supreme Court clarified that the writ's jurisdiction is confined to contests for members of the House of Representatives. The PET, on the other hand, was specifically designated to handle election contests for the president and vice president. In conclusion, the Supreme Court's ruling in Macalintal v. PET clarified that the Presidential Electoral Tribunal has jurisdiction over both the election of the president and vice president. It highlighted the joint and inseparable nature of the election process, providing a unified and efficient mechanism for resolving election contests involving the highest positions in the country. Thank you for joining us in this analysis of the Macalintal v. Presidential Electoral Tribunal case. Stay tuned for more legal insights in our future episodes. Remember, understanding landmark cases helps us comprehend the intricacies of our legal system. See you next time. Like and subscribe.